This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 35 and travel a lot for my blog. I explore ghost towns to share their stories. When I drove along the snow-covered back roads of northern Minnesota, it felt peaceful. The trees were bare and the landscape was quiet. Just me and the silence. I've never stopped thinking about it. On my first night near a ghost town, I set up camp. I took some pictures of the landscape to capture the beauty. While reviewing the shots, I noticed a quick shadow darting out of frame. I told myself it was just the light, but I felt uneasy. I shrugged it off and tried to relax inside my car. The next day, more snow covered everything. The world outside was eerily still. I decided to explore the area around my car. That's when I found strange footprints leading away from where I parked. They looked fresh, but it didn't make sense. I was alone. Chills crawled down my spine. I followed the footprints for a bit, but they vanished quickly. My heart raced. I convinced myself it was a prank by someone else passing through. That night, I went back to my car. I fell asleep quickly after the day's events. A storm rolled in, heavy snow falling outside. My sleep was interrupted by a loud thud. I woke up confused. That's when I noticed my engine was dead. I felt cold sweat on my forehead. I was stuck. As the wind howled outside, I thought I heard something. Whispers. It felt like voices carried on the gusts. I strained to listen. My heart raced again. Maybe I was imagining things. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the car, scanning the darkness. The cold bit at my skin. The whispers stopped. I felt stupid for thinking that I heard anything. The next night, I felt even more trapped. I tried to gather my thoughts. Every little noise made me jump. I kept hearing rustling in the trees. I thought I saw something move, but it was too dark to tell. I couldn't shake the anxiety. I remembered stories about haunted ghost towns. I laughed at myself, thinking maybe I was just letting those stories get to me. Then, late into the night, I heard more whispers. This time they felt closer. I froze. Could someone be out there? My breath quickened. I turned to run back to my car. Suddenly I stopped. Something was standing by my vehicle. My heart dropped. It was just a shadow at first, but as I squinted to see better, I realized it wasn't just my imagination. Then I heard another whisper. Help me. I turned around quickly. Nobody was there. The fear gripped me. My hand trembled. I didn't know what to do. I backed away slowly, unsure of what would happen next in that vast dark nothingness. I stumbled back, my eyes glued to the shadow by the car. It just stood there, unmoving. I took a shaky step forward, but the snow crunched beneath my feet. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. The figure in the shadow flickered, causing me to squint harder. Was it real? My flashlight beam wavered, casting erratic patterns against the twilight.
Feeling foolish but compelled, I called out, "Is anyone there?" My voice echoed back to me, swallowed by the dark. No response. My heart raced. I turned to dart back to my car, but then I heard it again, clearer this time. "Help me." The voice seemed to drift from the shadow. My breath caught in my throat. I stood there, torn between fear and curiosity. The figure shifted slightly, and I realized it was just a few feet away. All at once, I felt the urge to flee. Yet something compelled me to stay. I fumbled for my phone, hoping the light from the screen would reveal what I faced. The weak glow flickered to life as I hugged it close and advanced cautiously. That's when I saw it. At the foot of my car, half buried in the snow, was an old, worn coat. The material was frayed, and it seemed oddly out of place. I knelt carefully, details sharpening in the light. Patches, stains, a button loose but still attached. I scanned my surroundings again, expecting someone to emerge from the shadows, perhaps the owner of the coat, but nothing stirred. "Hello?" I called again, irritation intermingled with my fear. If this is a joke, it isn't funny. Silence hung thick in the air. The whispers were gone, replaced by a low wind. I couldn't bring myself to touch the coat, but I felt drawn to it. What if someone was trapped nearby? What if they were hurt? I decided to look for signs of anyone else being there. I moved away from the car, my flashlight beam dancing among the trees. The wail of the wind made it hard to think. Could I risk calling for help? Who would hear me out here anyway? Then I caught movement at the edge of the woods. A dark figure darted behind a tree. Panic surged through me. Was it real? I pointed my flashlight in that direction, stifling a scream. At that moment, all rational thought dissipated. I turned to run back to the car, my heart pounding. Whatever was out there felt sinister, like it was watching me. Back at the car, I locked the doors and fumbled with my keys, praying the engine would turn over, but dread seeped back as I remembered it was dead.
I could feel a cold sweat trickling down my back. I needed to escape this place. Then I heard it again, the whisper closer than before. "Help me." This time it was accompanied by a low moan that sent chills cascading down my spine. I was not alone. I looked out the window, scanning the darkness, expecting to see something. My hands shook as I tried to keep the flashlight steady. A pounding on the roof startled me. I gasped and whipped my head up, instinctively ducking down. I was trapped inside, darkness pressing all around. I wasn't safe here. What had I stumbled into, and what or who was outside? The pounding stopped, but in the silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my chest. I dared to peek out the window, but there was nothing, just darkness and the flickering light of my flashlight. I felt like a sitting duck in a world gone wrong. "Please, help me."
The voice broke through the air again, desperate and weak. It sent shivers down my spine. I felt a sick mix of dread and pity. Who was that? How could I help? Glancing back at the coat, it almost seemed to beckon me. I bit my lip, mind racing. Should I get out? Was someone hurt? What if it was all a trick to lure me into the open? I couldn't stay safe inside forever. I shot another glance at the woods, half expecting to see something lurking just beyond the reach of my flashlight. What if there were multiple figures waiting? The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Another thud on the roof came in quick succession, and I jumped. It felt heavier this time. My breath quickened as I clutched the steering wheel. I wanted to scream, to find someone, anyone, to help me, but an icy fear paralyzed me, locking me in place. Then I recalled my phone, my only lifeline, with its weak battery. I dug it out, praying for enough signal to call for help. As the screen lit up, I was relieved to find I had one bar. I pressed my thumb to the screen to call 911, but froze as I heard footsteps crunching the snow outside. I pressed my back against the seat, heart racing, listening intently. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Someone was pacing around the car. I wanted to shout, to demand to know who they were, but I couldn't muster a sound. "Please, I need your help," the voice called again, now right next to my window. I flinched and turned the flashlight in that direction. My heart sank as the beam illuminated a pale, gaunt face just inches from the glass. "Get away!" I yelled, the words erupting from me. Instead of backing off, the figure leaned closer, eyes wide with desperation, mouth opening to speak, no, to plead. "Help me! I'm lost! Trapped!" I couldn't breathe. A new sense of panic gripped me. Who was this person? They seemed to be dressed in rags, skin stark against the shadows surrounding me. It was the coat I'd seen lying in the snow, now worn by this spectral figure. My mind raced. I couldn't help them. My instincts shouted at me to escape, to start the engine and drive. But what if they really needed help? Before I could decide, the figures slammed their hands against the glass, and I screamed. I jerked back as the glass rattled under the impact. My flashlight flickered, and the figure's face twisted in anguish. For a brief moment, I saw a flash of a white button on the coat, exactly like the one I had seen earlier. "Help me!" they screamed again, voice cracking. And then everything went dark. I blinked as the darkness swallowed everything around me. My heart hammered in my chest, throbbing in my ears, drowning out any other sound. I fumbled with the flashlight, trying to find the switch. Panic surged. What had just happened? As my fingers found the button, I flicked it back on, flooding the inside of my car with light. I took a deep breath. The figure was gone. I peered out the window, breathing heavily.
The snow was falling thick now, creating a blanket of white that hid the ground, but there was no trace of that haunting face, just endless darkness. I took a moment to collect myself. The chilling fear still gripped me, but I had to think. I shot a glance at my phone. One bar. I needed to call for help. I pressed the 911 button on my screen, but a sudden commotion outside stole my focus again. It was a soft rustling, almost like something or someone was moving through the snow. I squinted into the void, but all I could see was the soft glow of my flashlight reflecting off the snowflakes. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer came, only the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible. "Help me." No, not again. My skin crawled as I recognized it. It was the same voice, but where had the figure gone? I felt frozen, caught in a moment that stretched longer than it should have. "Please, help me." The voice edged closer, swirling around the car. My instincts screamed at me to drive away, but I was stuck on the thought of that pale face. What if they really needed help? Suddenly, I saw a movement in the reflection of my rearview mirror. I turned slowly,
dread pooling in my stomach. The figure stood behind me, hidden in shadows, just out of reach of my light. I gasped and hit the lock button on the doors, feeling the sudden urge to protect myself. The figure seemed to pause, then stepped into the light. It was a woman, her clothes tattered and snow-streaked, her face twisted in pain. Tears streamed down her gaunt cheeks, and her eyes glinted with a despair I couldn't wrap my mind around. "Why won't you help?" she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice trembling. "Please, I'm lost," she whimpered, taking a step closer. "I need to get to the road. I can't stay here." Before she could finish, a loud crash erupted from above. My heart dropped. The sound echoed through the night. It felt like the roof was giving in, like the world was collapsing around me. I jumped back, eyes wide. "Get away from there!" I shouted, both at her and the unseen threat above. The woman flinched but remained focused on me, fear and desperation mingling in her eyes. "You have to trust me. I can't stay here. Another thud struck, more insistent this time, and the car shook slightly beneath me. That's when I saw it, a flash of dark movement, a shadow slinking through the snow, creeping towards the other side of my car. I felt a chill that went deeper than fear. I was no longer just fighting against my instincts. I was up against something more. I jerked my head back to the front, panic rising in my throat. Whatever was out there wasn't done with me yet. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "What do you want?" I shouted, though deep down I knew I was asking all the wrong questions. "Help me," the woman whispered again, her voice blending with the wind outside.
"They're coming for me." Suddenly she was closer, her face illuminated by the flashlight's beam. I could see the details more clearly now. The hollow cheeks, the desperation that filled her eyes. It was unnerving. I couldn't tell if she was a ghost, a figment of my imagination, or something worse. A violent shudder moved through the car, breaking my focus. I glanced to my left. The shadow was there again, just beyond the beam of light. Whatever it was watching us. "Stay back!" I yelled, panic turning my voice into a high pitch. I turned on the engine with a shaky hand, praying it would start. The engine roared to life, sending a wave of unrealized hope flooding me. But beneath it all, dread whispered that this wouldn't end well. "Please," she said again, her voice trembling. "You don't understand." Of course I didn't understand. I was stuck in a snowbank, trapped in a claustrophobic cocoon of glass and metal, with some haunting apparition outside. And now the shadows were moving closer, the rustling from outside escalating into a chorus of menacing whispers. I realized I couldn't reason with her, or whatever was happening. She was a distraction. "I can't help you! You're not even real!" I screamed, hoping to shake myself from this nightmare. But her gaze deepened, as if she'd heard something I hadn't. "You need to get out of the car, now. You have to run." I felt frozen, my mind racing through fight or flight scenarios. My heart raced as the figure outside grew bolder. It emerged partially from the shadows, something dark and bulbous woven into its form. I couldn't fully see it, but I felt its presence creeping closer, a palpable threat that made every fiber of my being scream to get away. I looked back at the woman. "What if you're part of this? What if you're luring me into a trap?" Her face twisted with agony. "You have to believe me, please." Against my better judgment, I flung open the car door. Snow spilled in, cold and biting. I could feel the wind tearing at me, urging me to run, but I hesitated. Then the figure lunged, and all hesitation evaporated. I bolted from the car, the snow crunching beneath my boots, heart racing. I didn't know where to go, just that I had to move. I turned back to look at the woman as I ran, but she was still standing there, a lonely silhouette against the swirling white. Just as I reached the edge of the road, I heard her cry out, "Watch out!" I turned to find the dark figure barreling toward me, its shape shifting and morphing into something more menacing. My breath caught as I stumbled back, looking desperately for escape, but the only thing in sight was the dark forest looming to my right. A moment later, it was silent. I couldn't hear the snow anymore, just my own heartbeat throbbing loudly in my ears. What had I gotten myself into? I darted toward the trees, my boots slipping in the snow. The dark figure was behind me, its movements echoing my panic.
I was sure it was gaining on me, but I couldn't bring myself to look back. The forest loomed ahead, branches clawing at the night sky, promising concealment and danger in equal measure. As I plunged into the shadows, the world around me turned jagged and distorted. Snowflakes whipped past, a blur of white that made visibility almost impossible. I squinted to see, but all I could make out were shifting shapes, warping in my periphery.
My breath came in quick bursts, fogging up the air before me. Then I heard it, a voice among all the chaos, muted and distant. "You shouldn't have run." The echo hung heavy, slinking through the trees. I stumbled deeper, driven by fear. I collided with a tree, its rough bark biting into my shoulder, and I used the moment to catch my breath. As I pressed against the cold trunk, I tried to still my thoughts, to make sense of what was happening. Maybe it was a prank, I told myself, a bad joke gone wrong. But deep down, the inexplicable dread told me this was more than a simple trick. Then, without warning, the air grew thick around me, suffocating and heavy. I gasped as a cold gust swept through the branches. The forest had come alive, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I could feel eyes on me, countless watchful gazes hidden in the shadows. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice wavering. Only silence answered. I took a step back, my heart pounding against my ribs. Everything felt wrong. I needed to get out of here. Suddenly, there was a soft crunch behind me. I turned sharply, my pulse quickening. The shadows shifted, and I caught a glimpse of a figure. It was closer now, more defined, and I could see its monstrous silhouette lurking just beyond the tree line. "No," I breathed. "I can't go back." I sprinted forward, dodging branches as they grasped for me. My legs burned with effort, but I couldn't stop. I burst into a small clearing, a dim moonlight spilling down like a spotlight, and in the center stood something that sent a chill slicing through my spine. It wasn't just the woman from before. It was her, along with more figures standing behind her, twisted forms with sunken eyes and desolate expressions. They crowded together, merging with the trees, like they belonged to the darkness itself. "Help us," the woman pleaded again, her voice now echoing in unison with the others. "You can't escape." Panic surged within me. This wasn't a trap. It was something far worse, a choice. In that moment, I understood they weren't looking for help. They were connected to this place, to something ancient and ravenous. They thrived on fear, and now I was a part of their dark tapestry. "No," I shouted, turning to flee, but the edges of the clearing began to close in, as if the forest itself was trying to contain me. Then everything went dark. I came to in a different part of the forest, on the ground, cold and damp. My heart hammered in my chest. I struggled to sit up, the last remnants of fear still tinged in my veins.
The air felt different, no longer heavy, but filled with an eerie stillness. I pushed myself up and looked around. The clearing was gone. A thick fog hung in the air, swirling like a living thing. I was surrounded by trees, but these were different. They were gnarled and twisted, like they were reaching out for something, or someone. My instincts screamed at me to move. I got to my feet, brushing off the wet leaves that clung to my clothes, and began to walk. With each step, uncertainty gnawed at me. The whispers had faded, but I could still feel them. Their presence wrapped around me, an invisible cloak of dread. I stumbled forward, and then I saw it, a faint glow in the distance. I raised my head, squinting against the fog. It looked like a light, flickering like a candle. Hope surged within me. Maybe there was someone there who could help. I hesitated, the last encounter still fresh in my mind. But the thought of wandering aimlessly among the shadows felt worse. I started making my way toward the light, each crunch of the ground beneath me reverberating in the silence. As I got closer, my heart sank. The light wasn't a beacon. It was dim and flickering, an old lantern hanging from a tree branch. It swayed gently, as if something was moving nearby. I looked around. Nothing. Just the cold trees and the creeping fog. "Hello?" I called out, my voice small in the thick air. No response. Then I noticed something reflected in the lantern's glow, a figure standing behind it. My stomach dropped. I froze, heart racing again. All the forest horrors rushed back. Slowly I stepped back, but something smooth and hard caught my foot, sending me sprawling. I landed with a thud, winded, and before I could get up, I heard that voice again, close this time. "You shouldn't have come here." I looked up. The figure was now in full view, watching me from the shadows. Fear gripped me as I blinked into the mist. She was there, the same woman from before, her pale face ghostly in the lantern's flicker. "Help us," she cried again, but this time with a tremor of desperation, "before it's too late." The fog thickened, something rustled behind me, and I turned quickly. There were more figures emerging from the mist, moving closer.
Their faces were twisted in anguish, mouths stretched in silent screams as they glided toward me, spindly hands reaching out. I scrambled backward, desperately trying to make sense of what was happening. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice cracking. Before they could respond, a sharp snap echoed through the forest. The ground beneath me quaked, and the lantern flickered violently. In an instant, the figures recoiled, their expressions shifting from hunger to pure terror. Then, without warning, an unseen force pulling me toward the darkness, I clawed at the ground, panic rising. That's when I heard the roar. It wasn't just in my ears, it vibrated through my bones, a primal sound that shook the very trees. Something was coming.
And it was hungry. I fought against the force pulling me backward, feeling the soil slip beneath my fingernails. The terrified faces of the figures blurred in the shifting mist, but their outstretched hands remained vivid. I couldn't let them take me. Just as my strength began to wane, a blinding light exploded in front of me. It wasn't the lantern. This was pure brightness, illuminating the fog in a way that made the trees flicker like shadows. I shielded my eyes, squinting against the brightness. "Leave her alone," a voice called out, powerful and unwavering. I felt the ground stabilize beneath me as the unseen force retreated. I turned to see a man standing between me and the figures, his silhouette stark against the blinding light. His presence felt familiar, as if I had seen him before, though I couldn't place when or where. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice breaking. My fear clashed with a flicker of hope. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step forward. The monstrous roar echoed again, shaking the trees. "We don't have time for this," he said, urgency framing his words. "Trust me, we need to go now." I glanced back at the figures. They writhed in the fog, their faces contorted in rage and despair. "What about them?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Their time is lost. We can't save them." His tone was firm, but there was a hint of sorrow beneath it. My heart sank again, teetering between fear and the compulsion to follow him. Without waiting for my response, he grabbed my arm, and the moment he touched me, a chill spread through my body. It was like stepping into a freezing river. I let out a gasping breath, but before I could protest, he dragged me forward toward the light. The fog thickened once more, swirling around us. I felt the weight of everything around me, the trees, the figures, the darkness, being left behind. As we moved, I dared to glance back at the lantern. The flickering glow dimmed, swallowed by the mist. The howling of the unseen creature boomed again, louder this time. Panic surged. "Faster," he urged, pulling me along. I stumbled, my legs unsteady as I fought to keep pace. The air grew colder, and with each step I felt the distance between us and the horror behind us expand. Soon we reached another clearing, a stark contrast to the chaos we left behind. The ground was solid and dry. The sky opened up above, revealing a sliver of moonlight. "Here," the man said, letting go of my arm. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. "We're safe for now." "Why did you help me?" I managed to ask between breaths. "Who are you?" His gaze was distant, lost in the dark edge of the woods we had just escaped. "I can't explain everything right now," he replied, his voice low. "But I know what you faced. You're marked. They want something from you." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" It felt like the ground was starting to quake again, though I wasn't sure if it was my own fear or something more sinister lurking beneath. "It's a hunt, and you're the prey. We need to find a way to break the bond before they find us again." Just then, I saw it, movement in the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Something was coming. I could feel the weight of that familiar dread settle in my chest once more. Then I realized the hunter had become the hunted. I didn't have time to think. I scrambled to my feet, the cold ground biting into my bare skin as I glanced toward the dark tree line. The figure emerged, slinking forward like a shadow dislodged from the night. My heart thundered in my chest, and I tightened my fists, ready to defend myself. "Stay behind me," the man instructed, positioning himself between me and the approaching darkness. I barely nodded, my throat dry as I tried to swallow the dread clawing its way up. The shape, though obscured by the darkness, was unmistakably human, tall and hunched with long limbs that moved awkwardly. It paused at the edge of the moonlight, its head tilting as if considering us. I could feel the malevolence radiating from it, an intensity that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. "What do you want?" my companion demanded, his voice low and steady. The creature opened its mouth wide, revealing a maw lined with jagged teeth that glinted like shards of glass.
Instead of words, a guttural growl echoed out, reverberating through the clearing. I felt the sound wrap around me like ice, squeezing my lungs, making it hard to breathe. "Run!" my companion yelled, and I didn't hesitate. I bolted past him, my feet pounding against the earth, adrenaline propelling me forward. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just knew I had to keep moving. I could hear it behind me, a mixture of footsteps and that horrible guttural sound. It was tracking us. I could feel its breath on my neck, but I kept pushing through, branches whipping at my face as I plunged back into the trees. "Over here!" he shouted, his voice breaking through the cacophony of fear. I followed the sound like a lifeline. In what felt like a desperate blur, we ducked behind a thick trunk, pressing ourselves against the rough bark. I strained my ears, trying to catch the sounds of our pursuer. "Please," I gasped. "What is it?" He shook his head, his expression dark. "Something worse than you can imagine. Just keep quiet." The growl intensified, and then faded, pulsing like the beat of a dying heart. I felt a sliver of hope, a moment of silence. But hope was short-lived. "Don't move," he commanded softly. I bit my lip, fear tightening my chest. Suddenly, the silence shattered. The creature must have come back. It pawed at the ground before our hiding spot, sniffing the air, and I could have sworn it knew we were there. My breathing quickened again. Then I realized something sparked in my memory. I remembered the figures from the fog.
Their faces were desperate, as if they were warning me, flashing before me like ghostly images. "The bond," I murmured. "I'm marked. What if—" "Focus," he interrupted, his voice sharp. And that's when I saw it. Something glinting on the creature's necklace. A silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon, just like the one I lost weeks ago. Recognition flashed through me. Was that what they wanted? Was this creature connected to my past? My mind raced with questions, but there was no time for answers. The creature's head tilted, confused, as if it too felt the pull of something unexpected. Before I could process it all, the darkness began to shift. More figures emerged, weaving between the trees like smoke. They surrounded us, faces gaunt and eyes hollow. The clearing erupted into chaos as they lunged for the creature, their hands outstretched in desperation. "Run!" my companion yelled again, and this time I didn't hesitate. I turned and dashed deeper into the forest, the light from the moon becoming a distant memory. My thoughts swirled with confusion and fear as I sprinted, desperate to escape the fray behind me, unaware of what new horror awaited just beyond the next tree. The forest swallowed me whole, the trees towering like sentinels on either side. I pushed through layers of underbrush, my breath stinging with cold air. The chaos behind me faded into the distance, but the echo of that guttural growl vibrated in my bones, reminding me that whatever was haunting me still searched for a scent. I stumbled into a break in the thicket, a small clearing where moonlight pooled like an oasis. Standing there, I felt bewildered, panting and shaking, the adrenaline still coursing through me like a wild river. The trees whispered their secrets around me, but now I could hear my own heartbeat echoing against the quietude. "Stay focused," I whispered to myself, knowing the moment of respite was fleeting. Suddenly, I heard it again, a rush of movement. The figures I had seen before were weaving through the shadows, their forms twisting in and out of visibility. I didn't know if they were friend or foe. Their pale faces bore such anguish. They felt tethered to this realm, or maybe they were drawn to me, remnants of something I couldn't fathom. Then I saw him, the man who had pulled me from the darkness. He sprinted into the clearing, urgency etched on his features. "We need to move," he urged, glancing back into the thick shadows, his eyes wide. "What are they?" I gasped, fear creeping into my throat. I didn't want to think that those figures were gathering, that the woods resonated with something dark and ancient. "They're trapped like I was," he said, his voice steady but taut with resolve. "But right now, we're hunted. Stay close." With that, I fell into step behind him, racing once more through the twisted undergrowth. Each step felt heavy, the forest clawing at my clothes, as if it wanted to hold me back. I could feel their presence behind me, a weight in the air, footsteps pounding like a drum, echoing from deeper in the woods. "What do they want?" I yelled, catching a glimpse of shadows flitting in the dim light. "They're drawn to something," he shouted back, glancing over his shoulder. "Something they can't reach. It's tied to you." Panic surged within me. Tied to me? What did I have to do with their torment? My dreams of exploring ghost towns had morphed into a nightmare, and the clarity of that fact slammed into me like a wave. We veered into another clearing, breathing heavily now. The darkness felt almost alive. It pressed in tightly, surrounding us with chilling intent. I turned to him, desperate for answers. "What's the bond? How do I break it?" He didn't respond immediately. Instead, his eyes flitted back toward the forest. "I don't know," he admitted, "but you drew them here. We need to find a way to turn them from you." Before I could ask how in the world we were supposed to accomplish that, the ground beneath us shifted again. Dark forms moved swiftly, darting through the trunks of the trees. "Get down," he barked, grabbing my arm and pulling me to the ground. We crouched together, cloaked by shadow, while figures moved in synchronized harmony, more than I had seen before, their faces twisted in pain. They didn't seem aware of us for the moment, their focus directed towards something beyond our sight. "What are they waiting for?" I whispered. "They believe you can help them. The pendant, it's a key. They want whatever ties you to it." His voice was strained, urgency propelling us as he grabbed my hand. "We have to break it." "What do you mean? I don't understand." As if fueled by my confusion, the figures turned sharply, all at once aware of our presence. They lunged toward us, a wave of mournful energy sweeping across the clearing. "Run!" he shouted, pulling me up with him. We pulled again, emotions spiraling as shadows enveloped us. The thrum of despair crackled in the air. They were close, I could feel them, but I didn't dare look back. As we wove through the trees, our path stopped short. Before us stood a small rise with an ancient stone structure, half buried in vines, a remnant of something long forgotten. My heart raced, an instinct tugged at me. This was it. This was the answer. I shouted at him, and he nodded, pushing us forward toward the structure. The shadows behind us grew louder, angry echoes bouncing off the trunks. We reached the stones, pushing inside the arched entry. The atmosphere shifted, colder inside. Dust hung heavy, emotions teeming in the air. "What is this place?" "I don't know," he replied, scanning our surroundings. "But maybe there's something here that can end this." The air grew thick and charged, a distinct pulse embedded in the coldness. The figures were pressing closer, silhouetted against the dim light of the moon, their sorrow wrapped around me, seeping into my skin.
Fleeting images swirled in my mind, visions of people who had wandered, lost like me. And then it hit me. My pendant, the connection I'd lost in the snow, the symbol I wore that felt like a tether, like it belonged with those figures. What if it could bridge the tales of light and shadow? Wrapping my fingers around the emptiness where the pendant once hung, I steeled my resolve. "I can't help them if I'm taken," I whispered, realizing that perhaps they didn't intend to harm me. They just needed resolve. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, my heart racing. "I will free you," I called into the growing tumult, my voice echoing off the stone walls. "I can't take you, but I will set you free." The figures paused, uncertain like moths drawn to light, finally stilling just outside the entry. I could feel the weight of their anguish pressing in. A myriad of emotions swirled like tempests. "You're bound here," I continued, louder now, "but you can find peace. I can help you find it. I can try." The silence was thunderous, and quietly, slowly, the shadows began to recede, retreating into the darkness. When I blinked, the figures had turned, fading, melding into the night. They seemed almost brighter, ethereal and misty. Their anguished expressions began to soften, whispers trailing away like smoke. "Keep going," I urged them, but they simply faded, melting back into the depths of the forest, their mournful energy dissipating. My breath faltered as relief coursed through me. I turned to the man, wide-eyed. "What just happened?" "I think you broke through," he said, awe etched across his features. "They felt your sincerity." And just like that, the darkness around us began to lift. Waves of energy pulsed around us, a cool breeze washing through, creating a space for the light to seep back in. As dawn approached, the shadows no longer felt oppressive. I could see clearer now, the forest gradually releasing its grasp on me. But just as I thought it was finally over, I caught one last glimpse of a shadow darting away from the rising light. Something lingered. It was as if the connection was fragile and in danger of fraying again. "Wait," I called out, racing to the threshold. But whatever was there had already vanished. The forest had shifted. I stepped back, breathing heavily. "What does that mean?" He turned to me, resolve firming his expression. "It means we're not done. The hunt isn't over yet." As we stepped out of the remnants of that stone structure, the air charged with a strange sense of hope mingled with fear. The woods felt different,
but not entirely safe. I moved forward toward the dawn, uncertainty sitting heavy in my heart. There was still so much beyond the trees, questions lingering on the edge of resolution. The truth of what had happened remained elusive, threading through the shadows, just out of grasp. It was clear then that the strength of what I had faced would stay with me. What it all truly meant, I might never know.
But one thing was certain. I was no longer the same. I had come face to face with darkness, and somehow I had survived. For now, that had to be enough.